Pastor Christopher De La Cruz with First Presbyterian Church in Jamaica. I am not at First Presbyterian Church in Jamaica. Hold on. My daughter's wings. They both use this hat from time to time. I am in my children's bedroom because you are probably in your kitchen or in your bedroom watching this Bible study. I'm glad you are there and keeping safe and sound. I even have, my kids have this little movie thing. I know there's an official name for it, but it's very useful right now. So, we're going to do a Bible study. This is for our Are You Thriving or Just Surviving series at First Church. And we're also sharing this with the Southeast Queens Collective Group. Everyone, you're all doing those Vital Congregation Bible studies. This Bible study we're doing is for Empower Servant Leadership is how it's listed in the Vital Congregation. John 13, 1 through 20. And it is about service. All right, so we're going to read from the Bible. I got now my nice little Bible here, the green Bible, if you're wondering. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to read a portion of it. You should read all of it. In fact, I'm going to tell you to pause right after I finish mine so you can read yours. Let's read this portion together, starting at verse 12. After Jesus had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you should also do as I have done to you." So I hope you're reading on your own. Our curriculum adds that you should take some time to read, do it silently, and then pray. So I would ask you pause to do that, and then we'll come back. So this is a time when Jesus washes his disciples' feet. Now, a thing to note is you gotta imagine this table fellowship event. We kind of read it in abstract and forget that it was a time of tension and uncertainty and potential for death and just things going out of control. Nothing like our current moment, of course. And I think it's really important to think through that tension that must have been in the room already, that fear and anxiety that was in the room as Jesus does this act, cleaning the disciples' feet, of saying, what I'm doing, you should do for one another. I, by the way, am just like Peter. I'd first be like, no, don't do that. You're supposed to be the master. And then when Jesus is like, I'm supposed to do this, Peter goes, no, I gotta please just wash all of me. Right? It's this overreaction of making sure that, I gotta do this right, rather than saying, no, Jesus is the one who is washing you and taking care of you. So I think the main point that I just want to emphasize here is that in that time of uncertainty, Jesus calls his disciples to do this act of washing each other's feet, of showing love in a way that is a humbling of yourselves and serving others, and leaving this as the message in the time where they didn't know what was going to happen next. They knew there was going to be a lot of pain. And in this time where we have no clue what's going to happen, when there are so many things out of our control, I think it's easy either to be completely overwhelmed by the anxiety or kind of pretend that it's not happening. What if Christians decided to hear Jesus' words and say, well, is there a way that in this time that I could still hear God's call to love? Because if you skip next to and see John verse 31 and 13, this is where Jesus gives the new commandment to love one another. He says, I give you a new commandment that you love one another, just as I loved you, you should also love one another. So just as Jesus, it's not a coincidence that he would give this commandment at the same time as also doing the washing of the feet. They're one and the same. This is what it looks like. And so just as God has loved us, and God is carrying us, how can we then do that and show that love where we are at and in this moment of history we are at? Sometimes that love does include this kind of collective love we're doing right now and saying we got to make sure that we all come together and do these really hard sacrificial acts of not going out, of staying inside, of canceling a lot of these gatherings and events as an act of love toward those who are most vulnerable and toward our healthcare workers who are at the front lines of this. My mom, my dad, they're nurses. I've shared this with folks at First Church, and it's an act of loving one another collectively as a people in a society to make sure we set those healthcare workers up for success. There's also ways to show love for one another even as we have to look at these screens and do all that. Who are the people you need to call? Who, as a church, community, how can we set up ways that we can connect with one another? And of course, I would say, how can we rise up and choose love in a time where many are tempted toward hate? I've already seen something like 6 or so attacks against Asian folks, or folks saying, well, you brought coronavirus here. How do we not fall into that and instead say, how can we be in this all together? And so I challenge, if you're meeting as a small group now, or if you're doing this alone, go through the curriculum questions with one another, or even just yourself as a time of reflection.
Daddy, we got a package.
All right. Hope that went well, and I hope I'll see you again soon.